All right, welcome back everybody to another live stream. It has been a hot minute since I've done one of these. Apologies, life has happened. But today we've got an awesome guest, our friend Erick Cedeno, also known as Bicycle Nomad. He just completed a tour on the Underground Railroad route, adventure cycling route, and we're going to talk to him about the route, his experiences, and all that good stuff. But before we get going, a little bit of housekeeping. Big thanks again to our Patreon supporters that keep the lights on, like the literal lights on, as well as all the people that have been buying lots of merch recently for the holidays. It's how we support the channel. AdSense doesn't really do it. So when you guys buy, our goofy party paste pins or some of our new postcards, and if this will zoom up, come on, Sony, bam, beautiful, suitable for hanging, and only $5. So if you want to keep supporting non-competitive cycling content, there should be a link in the description below that will lead you to the Big Cartel shop, and we've got a bunch of fun stuff that we're selling for the holidays. With all that said, I'm super excited to introduce our guest. Welcome to the show, Erick Cedeno. Yay!
Hey, Russ, how are you, bud?
Nice. So we've had, I think you've been on, at least this might be your second time on the live stream.
Yeah.
Second or third. Yeah. Different world since the last time you've been on here.
Yes.
Cool. So you just wrapped up your tour. Can you give us some basic stats about how long it is, how many days you took to complete it?
Yeah. So the Underground Railroad adventure cycling is about 2,200 miles. I usually start this is my second time. So I completed it in 2014 and now 2020. And what I did is the Underground Railroad from adventure cycling starts in Mobile, Alabama. And I decided to start mine in New Orleans, which is about 150 miles. So from there, I just connect into the Underground Railroad from adventure cycling.
Yeah. So this is this is the second time you've done it. Was it different this time around?
Yeah, it's always going to be different. Not sure if I'm going to do another one that long, but that's what I said in 2014.
Yeah.
There's so much history of the Underground Railroad. So literally in 2014, I went towards Eastern Kentucky instead of going this year, Western Kentucky. So you will always find new history, new places to visit. And even I could go back again and see new places. And yeah, maybe eventually I will. One of the things I want to do is I wanted to do is research this route to possibly do tour guides for Bicycle Nomad along the Underground Railroad. Not 30 days, but I was able to condense it down to 3 to 5 to 7 days along the Underground Railroad where there's a lot of history. So
yeah. What was your favorite part about the route? If you were to just do like a 3 or 5 day section, what would you tell people to do?
I always say arrive in Louisville, Kentucky, right at the Ohio River, which the Mason-Dixon line. You will see a lot of physical history of the Underground Railroad in northern Kentucky, in southern Indiana, in southern Ohio, and all the way up to Lake Erie. Ohio has some amazing history of the Underground Railroad. Literally anywhere you go in Ohio, you'll see someone will tell you, oh, this house is part of the Underground Railroad, or that house is part of the Underground Railroad. Well, that church is part of the Underground Railroad. So literally, I could probably just do tours over and over, and I will see new things.
Right, right. So when you stumble upon a house that was part of the railroad system, could you actually go inside, or was it more just like a historical placard? Like how, what could you actually like touch and feel along the route?
Yeah. So once you go over Louisville, Kentucky, and along that area, once you go over the bridge, the Second Street Bridge, there's a town called New Albany, Indiana, Southern Indiana, and there's a church that I was able to go below in the basement, and I saw rooms that freedom seekers were kept, and I saw tunnels that went into. Back then, that church was connected to an army, a Union Army hospital, where nurses used to come down and obey the freedom seekers. So very, very interesting to go and be able to see that and touch history,
Right.
Yeah,
right.
there's now there's museums like the Rankin House, which is John Rankin in Ripley, Ohio. That place is a museum. The Underground Railroad Museum, the National Underground Railroad Museum, the Freedom Center is located in Cincinnati, Ohio. So yeah, there's so much writing, so much history throughout that corridor that it's amazing to see.
Yeah. Cool. I'm going to look at the chat real quick. We got people streaming in, 117 people in the chat. If you guys are digging the interview so far, give it a thumbs up and let us know where you're watching from. Lots of familiar names. We've got Lindy Lou. I think she's from Texas. Sean's in the chat here. Who else? I think I saw, Steve Fuller is in the house. Arlen Hall, former adventurous cycling tour director.
Nice
to see you in here.
Nice to see you, Arlen.
Cool. Cool crowd. So let us know in the comments if you've ridden this route or just generally where you're from. So when did you leave and when did you wrap up the tour?
So I left October 21st. I left New Orleans October 21st, and I got to Niagara Falls November 23rd, 24th. Yeah. So about 32 days.
Yeah. So you were touring like in the peak of election frenzy. What was that like?
It was a lot of my friends and family was like that. You should not do this trip, around elections, especially as a person of color traveling through southern states of Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, Kentucky. But I tell you what, I actually felt pretty welcome. And people were really nice along the route. You will see people with at gas stations or convenience store, and everyone will say, "Hey, good morning, good afternoon, where you going, where you coming from," and really interacting and wanting to be part of the trip. And like, "Oh, I wish I could do that." But at no point on this trip I ever felt harmed or dealt with racism, not in front of my face, and that was pretty cool.
Right. That's good to hear. Surprising for me to hear. When we did our tour, ages ago, it was an election year too, and going through the South, everything just felt a little bit charged. Like people were more on edge. So I was really curious to see how like that would have affected your tour.
Yeah, no, I mean, I felt like I'm taking the time for myself, and I don't let outside influences dictate how I'm going to feel on a tour, So if someone had a feeling about me, that's on them, not on me. And I kept that mentality throughout. But again, people were really kind along the way. I never experienced any negativity.
Right. I'm curious, like the communities that you passed through, how many of them really identified as, embracing being a part of the Underground Railroad history? Like, were they proud to do it, or were that for a lot of people, was it like, oh, it's just something in the backyard?
Some of them were. When I start, and that's why I recommend people starting northern Kentucky. If you don't have that much time, because it will take about at least 30, 32, 35 days to complete the whole route. I say if you only have 5 days, 3 days, I would say do that corridor from Louisville to Cincinnati. You will see so much history, and that could take about 3 to 5 days. Some places along there, people were pretty proud of that they were part of the Underground Railroad, and especially Ripley, Ohio. When I went there, they identified themselves with like, yeah, this is where a lot of people came through along the Underground Railroad system. But in the southern states, not much. But in the southern states, you will not see a lot of historical sites of the Underground Railroad. You will see a lot of plantations. So the whole trip is very interesting because you're riding through the South, and all you remember are people that are travel the same route that you are traveling, right? And you see a lot of plantations. So you know tobacco, cotton, and you know that people worked on those plantations. So so you don't see a lot of physical evidence like buildings and stuff until you get to northern Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm curious, like what was it like to tour during COVID? Was it harder to find accommodations and resupply, or was it kind of business as usual?
In the sun. And I laughed. I laughed. Some parts in the southern states, I kept my mask all the time on. And I knew that I wanted to come back healthy, right? And I also felt like a lot of my friends and family was like, you shouldn't take this trip because of COVID. But I don't know, I gotta live, I gotta breathe. And I breathe doing this kind of work, like touring and stuff like that. So I felt like I interacted with less people on the road than I do here, right? Like I'm barely interacting with people there. Only when I need a supply, like get some drinks or trail mix at convenience store, a supermarket. But no, I think it was almost business as usual because a lot of places in the southern states were like, I remember going into a convenience store and they were like, oh no, you don't have to wear a mask. I'm like, oh no, I am gonna. So that's pretty interesting because it's a different mentality, right? They're like, you don't have to wear a mask here. I was like, no, I am gonna wear a mask.
Right.
And you tell that I was not from there because I'll be the only one wearing a mask, right? Also
right.
Going through Amish country in northern Kentucky and Ohio, they don't wear masks. And and that was tough because I was invited to go into somebody's house, an Amish family. And we decided not to go just because at first I was like, this is what touring is all about, right? Like going into a culture or learning somebody's lifestyle. And I'm always interested in learning about the Amish because I've traveled through Kentucky and Ohio before. So it was the first time that I was invited into somebody's house. And that night I'd say, yes, I'm going to go. And the next morning I had to think back and I'm like, no, I'm not going to go just because they were not using masks. And I was like, I don't know if it's the right thing to do maybe this time. But overall, like stores and campgrounds, for the most part, were open. Some campgrounds were closed in the northern part of the trip just because of the season. Like people like, what are you doing traveling in November, right? And like, the weather is going to be really bad in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, I kept looking at the weather and it worked out.
Yeah, it's a bit of a late season trip. I think, like generally, most people would probably try to do it in the warmer months. Did you run into any other riders riding the route as well?
No, I saw 1 or 2 riders, but they were going south.
Okay.
They were not on the Underground Railroad. They were on some other
on their own tour.
Yeah.
Nice. Let's see. Cool. You guys in the chat, thanks for joining us. We've got 150 people in the chat, which is pretty awesome. If you guys have any questions about the Underground Railroad route, ask away, or any questions for Erick specifically, just put it in the comments and I'll try to get to them. So you did this trip. You had some partners. Like, who was involved and how did it come together?
Well, the whole trip started because I got a call from someone that always thought about doing the Underground Railroad. And again, because of what we talked about, the nature of America and elections and COVID, they didn't want to do it by themselves. So they asked me, will you be able to guide on this trip? So I went with someone that has never done a trip, but he was very physical, strong, like a cyclist that has done a lot of races and stuff, but first time touring. So that whole idea came from me accepting. I said, okay, yeah, I'll do a guided tour. And just prior to that, about a year ago, I partnered with State Bicycles, and they asked me, State Bicycle?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you've done some reviews. So they asked me to collaborate on a new project that they have, which is a gravel bike, exploration bike / a bike that does everything. And I agree. I always have this vision that I eventually will want to have Bicycle Nomad in somebody's bike, and do a collaboration. So that manifested. That was really cool. It was really cool to be able to ride that bike on the Underground Railroad. A lot of people don't know, but the idea of Bicycle Nomad came about in 2014. I actually was on the Underground Railroad. And the idea was because a lot of people were telling me, don't do this trip, don't do that trip, because you're going to go through places that are you might encounter racism, someone may harm you. You should not do this trip. And actually it was the opposite. Same thing that happened in this year, happened in 2014. People were really kind along the way. And at that point, I don't like to listen to music while I'm on the road. I like to listen to my thoughts. And a thought came in to maybe create a brand to inspire people to travel by bicycle, because pictures don't do it justice, right? So me on social media was not, and I said, well, I'm going to do a brand called Bicycle Nomad. And that was done in 2014. Literally after that trip, I created a brand, got someone to create the logo, and to go back 6 years later and on the same route that I created Bicycle Nomad and ride a bike that I helped design. That was pretty cool. So that bike is awesome. I have one flat tire and no mechanicals, right? So nice. I just really love the bike and how he handled on this tour. But I also, just before the tour, about 2 months prior to the tour, I partnered with Blackburn, and I'm one of the brand ambassadors for Blackburn.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So that person that had reached out to you about having you guide the trip, did he come along, or was this your recon for guiding him later?
No, he came along. He came along.
Oh, okay.
And we came along and we had such a blast. But so many things happened along the way that obviously for someone to travel, this is a really hard trip to take as a first tour. I probably would have never done it as my first tour. It's just physically, mentally, and spiritually a very hard trip to take on 2,000 miles with the history of the Underground Railroad. So he did such an amazing job, and physically he was very strong. So he handled the miles very well. And some of the challenge, just like anyone that does tours, you're challenged by the weather, being outside your comfort zone, camping in places that you're not used to, especially again as a person of color. Those were challenging things for him, and I think that eventually he opened up to understanding what bicycle touring was about, and that and that's when I saw him enjoying the trip more.
Right. So we got some questions here. So Steve Fuller asks, what was the most sobering historical site you saw on the route?
Oh, there's so many. But again, going back to New Albany, Indiana, to go to the basement of this church and to see the rooms and to see a tunnel that connected to a hospital that was literally across the street. And then you were able to see physically like a history, right? And how the Underground Railroad worked. For me, that was really interesting. I mean, I have a video of me going through that and I'm breathing hard. And that breathing was from me just being overwhelmed by the energy that I was in. Yeah. But that place was amazing. But also the John Rankin House in Ripley, Ohio, for me, that was amazing because over 2,000 freedom seekers came through that house. And for me to be standing in the house that so many people came through, a lot of freedom seekers came through that house. That was really amazing. And there was a tour guide that was showing us around the house and how the system worked. And overwhelming.
Cool. So Arlen Hall asks, you've done the trip twice. What was there anything different doing it the second time? Yeah,
there's always new places to see, right? So even I could go back and see new places that I was like, oh, I wish I could have gone there, but I also wanted to go here. So you just can't go everywhere by bike. So I literally could go back on that same route and see new places, and probably will do. Like I mentioned before, one of the things I would like to do is do some guided tours. As I no longer have that coffee shop that I had in Phoenix just because of COVID. I had to close, so I have to pivot my business, and I'm thinking probably getting into doing guided tours.
Cool.
And some of the places that I've been to, Yeah,
well, that's exciting. Definitely keep us in the loop when you get that going. Let's see. So if you guys have questions, keep asking. So you use the adventure cycling maps. We've used them for kind of more depopulated areas out here in the West. In the place where it's so chock full of history, does it show the main route and then historical sites off, or does the route itself try to hit as many historical routes as it can?
Yeah, the route hits a lot of historical sites of the Underground Railroad. Again, in the southern states, you don't see as much. There's a couple of museums that may have some stuff about the Underground Railroad, but literally in the southern parts of the states, you're just riding. You're riding, again, you're seeing like plantations and things, but the map actually shows you places of the Underground Railroad, and I really recommend traveling through with the map, because without it, you will be lost. Because I was guiding someone, I used to, in the past, just use the physical maps. And for the first time, I decided to get a GPS. And also, I had it on my phone. So I had 3 ways to look at the information. I had it on my phone, on my cycling computer, and a physical map. Because on the GPX, you don't see the service areas. You just see the routes. So you will need either the digital for the phone or the maps. But yeah, definitely, I would recommend getting the maps, because then you will literally be lost. You won't know where the things are. And it just makes sense to know, like, it makes it so simple, right? That you could ride 65 miles and then you'll get to this house, or 35 miles and you get to this church that is part of the Underground Railroad, or a museum, or so it's easy to break down your day using the cycling maps.
Right. So we got a question here from Biking Erick. He asks, will you make a YouTube video? Is there any other media that's going to come from the trip?
I'm not sure. I usually don't. I'm not sure. I usually don't go on trips to make a video. I do it for myself. I do document it mostly on social media, but I do have a lot of content, and maybe something will come out, but it's something that I did this trip for. It was just for me
Yeah.
and my friend who, just for us to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it won't do it any justice. Like literally, like
Right.
I would recommend people to go out and see it for themselves than looking it up and on YouTube. It won't do it any justice. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one thing to show like a video walking through like a tunnel or underground place, but quite another thing to be there and really experience it.
Yeah.
So, let's see. Our friend Andy from Velo Studio asks, you traveled through regions with a rich food history, very food motivated. Were there any memorable meals that you had along the route?
Memorable meals. No, I did have some really good coffee, mainly because I got some instant coffee from Stumptown. So I got some really good coffee from Stumptown. In Cincinnati, there was a couple of really good coffee places. Yeah, I would say that, food wasn't a part of food. I use it kind of like a fuel to just keep going north.
Right.
But I'm not a foodie
Okay.
per se when I'm on tour. I am a foodie when I'm home, and I like to experience some really good food. But on tour, you can't be picky. Like you're just trying to survive. You know, like I remember my friend and I on a Sunday, we knew where the convenience stores were going to be and all that stuff. And this was somewhere in Kentucky, and it was a Sunday, and I didn't know that all the stores were going to be closed. So literally, we stopped at a convenience store that had a vending machine, and we did like 45, 47 miles with two Dr. Peppers.
Nice.
but those are the kind of things that I look back, and I personally don't drink soda like that. So, but it's what kept me going, But yeah, going back to that question, no, I don't remember any really, really good food. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's see. So we got a question here from Norberto Huertas, and he asks, as a individual of color in the cycling industry, what are some challenges you've faced? Have you experienced anything, because you're a person of color that you're like, I don't know about that?
Yeah, no, not in the industry. I don't think so. Or maybe I've never paid attention because I'm the kind of guy that I don't really care. I'm just going to do what I want to do. And if I don't get represented on marketing magazines or things like that, I'm still going to do my trips, right? But I do know the importance of representation. I remember I was a speaker about 3 years ago at the Youth Bike Summit, and I had some kids about 15, 16 years old, and they came up to me after I spoke, and they said, "Man, I love what you do, and I follow you on social media, but I can't do that. That's a white man sport or a white man hobby." And I'm like, "Oh no, it's not. Anybody could do it." Yeah. But I understood where it came from. It came from someone that is 15 years old and does not see himself on marketing magazines or social media doing adventure cycling, So, but me personally, I have not been, I haven't had any negative experience. I keep doing what I do because I love it. But I had some bad experience at campgrounds, like even on this trip. I remember sitting on my tent and I see this couple looking at me, and I'm like, "Why are they looking at me?" But I'm sitting on my tent, and all of a sudden, like 15 minutes later, 20 minutes later, a ranger came by, and the ranger only spoke to me. There was other people in this campsite, and he was like, "Do you have a reservation?" and all this stuff. And I'm like, "Whoa, did they call him?" But also, they don't see them. They don't see other people of color. So it's a thing that needs to change to make it more normal, right? And it starts with companies like, and that's one of the reasons I decided to partner with Blackburn, because it starts with companies like that, so they could start putting people on marketing brochures or or campaigns, right? So we start making this more normal, that it's not about a color anymore, you know. And I hope that one day we get to that. But in the meantime,
Yeah.
I just recommend people to, regardless of their color of skin, like to go out and explore, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Hold on one sec. My laptop battery is dying.
Okay.
So I'm gonna. Can you see the comments, Eric?
No, where? No, I don't see any comments.
You don't see any comments?
No.
No. Okay. I was gonna have you hold down the fort while I play with the cable here. But let me see.
Go ahead. I'll hold.
Okay.
I'll still hold it down.
Okay. Eric's gonna hold down the fort, and you're gonna talk about what? Just give people some highlights about the trip. Like if you're gonna do it, you have to stop here, and I'll fiddle with the tower. Hold on.
No worries. So I'm gonna talk about a couple of things. The Underground Railroad, such a special place to travel, and I usually don't do a trip twice, but this is one that I probably do for the rest of my life. Not sure when's the next one. I'm not sure if I do the whole 30 days again. It's a beautiful trip, but I have other responsibilities. But there's so much history, and if you only have 2, 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, I do recommend going from northern Kentucky, Louisville, up to Cincinnati. And Cincinnati is so special because the National Underground Railroad Museum is there, so it's a really good place to end. But also there's a bed and breakfast called 6 Acres, and 6 Acres, a Black-owned bed and breakfast, and also they were part of the Underground Railroad. That building was part of the Underground Railroad. So how cool it is to travel through the Underground Railroad and stay at what they call Underground Railroad stations, you know? And I definitely recommend. That's just north of the city, north of downtown, about 7 miles from downtown. But I recommend doing this trip. This trip follows an old spiritual song called Follow the Drinking Gourd. And Follow the Drinking Gourd, you could actually find it on YouTube, where it says that you follow the Tennessee, the Ohio River, and the North Star to take you into Canada. And so you will always be camping along the banks of the river, which is beautiful. But sometimes, depending on the time of year, I didn't have to deal with mosquitoes because it was so freaking cold. But in the past, in 2014, I dealt with a lot of mosquitoes, and all you remember, like I woke up one morning, just full of mosquitoes. I didn't have any food, and then you start thinking about. See, that's why this trip is so special. You're not going from A to B, but you're traveling. You're traveling the way people used to travel in the past, along the Underground Railroad, meaning like they were traveling along the banks of the river, and sometimes with a lot of mosquitoes, maybe no food.
Right.
So you start reflecting a lot about that. And obviously we're on the bikes, and they had it harsh because they have people following them by dogs and things like that. But you could engage yourself and start reflecting on what it took to get to freedom, you know. And me myself, people ask me why I keep going back to the Underground Railroad. The Underground Railroad, also called the Freedom Trail. And in 2014, I think I was in a point in my life that I was looking for some answers, and I was able to find it along the Freedom Trail, you know. So very special for me.
Cool. Plugged in the computer, so we're not going to die anytime soon. Let's see. If you guys in the YouTube comments have any other questions about the route, or for Eric in general, let us know. So you were touching on a good point before my power cord fell out, and that was, you know, this issue of representation in the bike industry. Have you? I imagine you must get lots of messages, you know, through the gram or wherever, of other, you know, people of color, you know, just saying, I can't believe you're doing this, or, you know, is it safe for me? Does that happen? And what do you tell folks?
Oh yeah, it happens all the time. And I always tell people I can't guarantee that nothing is going to happen. I can't guarantee nothing is going to happen if I walked outside from my house, you know. But
Hmm.
um, I've always been an explorer, and I grew up with a mom that always encouraged me to keep exploring, right? So what I have told people is that I've traveled 13 years all throughout the country, and I've never been harmed, never encountered racism. I had one experience with a cop one time in South Carolina, but that's a different show. Um, but other than that, people have been very kind to me, and I could only just speak with my experience, right? So I can't guarantee, and that's what I told my friend who went with me. I said, I can't guarantee nothing is going to happen to us, but I could tell you that nothing has happened to me, and these are the experience that I have encountered, and I am not going to dictate how someone feels about a person of color. And I truly feel like I'm alive when I'm doing bicycle touring, you know.
Hmm.
And that's like putting like um, I don't know. That's like someone telling me not to breathe, and I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna breathe. You know, that's literally how I see it. And I do encourage people because there's a lot of good people. There's a few bad apples, but there's more kind people out there, regardless of what the media tells you. You know.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. Got some questions here. Ozy Mackey asks, is the route online? Yes, it is an adventure cycling route. You can buy the maps at adventurecycling.org. And what else?
And Russ,
Let's
that's
see.
why I decided to do some guided tours, because I know it's not comfortable for some people to go out on their own. So I figure, why not go with Bicycle Nomad to some of the places that I've seen before, you know? And I'll do all the logistics, and then you're able to travel with someone that has done it before. You know, it's like you can't go climb the Himalayas by yourself, but you could go with a guide, you know? And that's really why I
Yeah.
am, you know? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, let's talk a little bit about your burgeoning tour company. Like, where's in the process, and do you have any itineraries planned, or are you still trying to suss out where you want to
well,
go?
yeah, no, I have several routes that I want to do, and the Underground Railroad is one of them. And that's one of the reasons I accepted this job. This actually was my first client.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because they came to my coffee shop 3 years ago, and they said, oh, what's next for Bicycle Nomad? And
Right.
at the time I was running the coffee shop, and I said, I'm not sure, but I always wanted to do guided tours. And this
Mm-hmm.
guy told me, I'm going to be your first client. That was 3 years ago. I'm going to be your first client. I thought he was just talking, right? He said, I'm going to be your first client. And by the way, he's a big fan of you, so he's probably listening because we talk about you and some of the work that you have done. And he says, I'm going to be your first client. I didn't believe him, and I didn't know
Right.
how that was going to happen. And literally, because of COVID, he turned 50 years old. They were going to go to Africa because they had because of COVID, they weren't able to go. And they called me and said, will you be able to travel with him along the Underground Railroad? That's something that he always wanted to do. And I'm like, I'm so honored to be able to share that experience with someone, and
Yeah.
and also get paid to do it, to do what I really love doing, which I have a passion for. And it's funny because 10, 13 years ago, when I started traveling by bike, all I wanted to do is just doing it by myself. But now this is creating a livelihood for me and my family, so.
Right. Awesome. That's cool.
Yeah.
So I guess as a guide, how do you think of a route differently when you have a guest?
I laugh because it's totally different. And I knew a little bit about it just talking to some other guides from other companies, but it's totally different when you're out there. first, you have to be on all the time. So when you're traveling with Bicycle Nomad, I couldn't have a bad day, right? So I couldn't be like, oh, I don't really feel like being here, or my legs are hurting, or I'm tired. You know, I have to be on. I'm guiding someone, so I have to. Another thing is I get lost with the physical maps, and that's the reason why I had a phone, a computer, a GPX, a digital, just because I was like, I cannot be embarrassed and get lost with my client, right? And put, I mean, we already traveled so many 2,000 plus miles, so for me to do extra miles, that's kind of bad. So those kind of things that you don't think, because when you go out on tours, you don't mind getting lost. That's actually you find different routes, and it's, you know, but with the client it's different. So yeah, those are the things. And also when you're traveling by bike and you're guiding someone, there's a lot of stress in the mind, right? Because you're in outside your comfort zone, right? You're riding roads that you're not used to. The weather might be different than back home. You have loose dogs, so we have a lot of loose dogs in the country, like in Alabama and Mississippi. Like Mississippi got the award for the most loose dogs in the country. Yeah, I mean, they were just attacking us, but not really biting us, but just coming out of, you know, everywhere. And it happened a lot, and mentally that takes a toll, you know, that takes a toll to someone. And then you're climbing hills, you got dogs following you, the rain. We got caught up in Zeta, the Hurricane Zeta in Alabama. We were supposed to be at our lodging by 4 o'clock, and the hurricane arrived around 2 o'clock or 1 o'clock, so literally about 3 hours before we estimated. And then we got a flat tire in the middle of a hurricane. Oh, it was just bad. But again, that takes a toll. And then as a guide, you have to, luckily, again, he's a strong rider, but takes a toll regardless if you're seasoned or not. And as a guide, you have to be that support for someone, to be like, hey, everything's gonna be okay. We're gonna find, we're not gonna go all the way up there. We're gonna go 10 miles or 5 miles. There's another campground, and that's where we're going to stay, and that's where we're going to find shelter. So as a guy, you constantly have to be 3 or 4 or 5 steps ahead of a lot of things. So you got the weather, you got all the other things that I told you, you know, and the routes and all that. So you constantly have to keep checking the weather, especially as we kept going north. I kept seeing a storm close to the Buffalo and Lake Erie, and so we had to do, the last week, we had to do extra miles, sometimes 80 miles, 85 miles, just to be able to finish before that storm. So again, if it's your first tour or your second tour, you're not used to seeing the weather or the pattern. Those are the kind of things that a guide helps with, you know.
Yeah. So we got a question here from Cecilia Leon. She loves the collaboration with State Bicycle Company. What were the highlights in working with State?
So I thought State was really cool to work with, because Mehdi, which is the owner, and his team, they were very flexible with ideas. They never done, that was their first gravel bike, and they really hit a home run with that bike. I think at a bike that is under $899 to get a built bike, a complete bike for that price was amazing. And one of the things that I told them was that, and why I thought it was great to have that partnership, was, for me, I want more people to be able to afford the lifestyle, you know. And you know, it's not only the bike, but then you have to buy the bags and the tents and the stove and the maps and it's just so expensive to get in, and it shouldn't be. And my hope is that I could get more people to travel by bike with this collaboration. But they were just open to a lot of great crazy ideas and simple ideas, and they were just flexible to work with, and I love that about it. I mean, they were so flexible that they added the Bicycle Nomad logo in front in their head badge, you know, where
cool.
that's a real state for a bicycle company, and they understood that to do a collaboration, why not? It was the first time that they have ever done that, you know. And, I just love working with them, and hopefully we work again on other collaborations.
Yeah. Let's see. Going through the comments. If you guys have questions for Erick, leave those in the comment section. So because you guys encountered so many dogs, what are your pro tips for dealing with dogs on a bike?
Well, okay, this is not fair, but usually the person that is behind never gets attacked because the person in front is either, we used our bottled water, so we just throw water at them and then they run away. And usually the person in the back, the dog doesn't chase them because he don't want to get water again. So that's pretty cool. But I think water is the main thing, but then you lose a lot of your
hydration,
your fluid, your hydration. Yeah. But that works.
That's funny. I thought it would have been worse to be the person in the back.
No. I try both, and it's best in the back.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, it's best in the back. And then another thing is just I don't know. I call myself the dog whisperer, so I give strong commands, and I say stop, and if for some reason they stop. So
right, yeah.
But there
we picked up on that.
Of dogs.
Yeah, we kind of picked up on that too on our tour. Like if you give a command and you sound scared, they're just going to keep coming. But you have to like pretend like you're the dog's owner or something.
Yes.
Nice. So as you start to develop the touring company, how do you think you'll do long trips like this, or keep it pretty short?
No, I would never do a 30-day trip again.
No.
It's beautiful again, but it's tough. It's tough for me now. I got married in February, so where I wasn't before, so I didn't think about anybody but my routes and what I was going to eat that night. So it's kind of tough to be away from my wife. But I definitely want to do smaller trips. 7 days, 3 days, 5-day trips, and the Underground Railroad is definitely one of them. Also, would like to do a lot of the rails to trails because I think people are more comfortable, especially coming into the lifestyle, to do maybe an Allegheny Passage, which I did back in 2015, and that's about a 7-day trip from Pittsburgh to DC, the Katy Trail. Ohio, such an amazing place to bike. They have the Ohio to Erie trail towpath, and that goes from Cincinnati all the way up to Cleveland. About 95% of it car free. So you imagine 365 miles car free, and then you have campsites, and you have bed and breakfast and hotels where you could stay. Those kind of things I think I want to start where people are more comfortable riding where there's no cars, you know. So
for sure.
But also down in maybe doing like a San Francisco to LA trip as well. So I'm working on that, but with this COVID has been really tough, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of put the shutdown on all tour companies, or you know, a lot of the big established ones. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next year, to see if people can get vaccinated and if that helps things along, or you know, if 2021 is still going to be another kind of like wait and see year, you know.
Yeah.
So
in the meantime, I'm still going to do some research on routes, and I'm going to go out and do a lot of trips just to get prepared as soon as we can. Start taking groups out. And they're going to be very intimate. They're not going to be like the big companies. So you're talking about 5 people, 6 people, or maybe less than that, you know. So
That's a good size. So for people that want to, learn more about, future trips, you've got an Instagram, which is at Bicycle Nomad or Bicycle_Nomad on the screen. Do you have a website to direct people to?
So I also have IamBicycleNomad.com, and I sell merchandise on that, but I will be adding some of the routes that as I develop the tour guide company. Again, this was the first one, and this was taken again because I knew that there was, from 2014, I knew that there was a more condensed tour that I could do instead of a 30, 32, or 35 days, which a lot of people can't have those many days off. I think that 3 days, 5 days, and 7 days are, more, a lot of people could do those. So.
Yeah, it's more life size friendly for people with jobs and families and responsibilities.
Yeah.
So we're getting close to the hour. If there are any other questions, pop them in the comments right now. So we've covered tours. What else is next for Bicycle Nomad now that you no longer have the cafe?
Yeah, I think that working with State Bicycle or doing more collaborations. I want to do, for 2021, I want to do a lot of content. I want to focus on overnight camping to show people that you don't have to do a 30-day trip. It doesn't have to be, I have some epic 1 night or 2 days camping, so you don't have to do those. And also I want to talk to you about the show that you did with Amtrak, because those are really cool places where if you live in LA, you could take an Amtrak to Santa Barbara or San Francisco, and then you ride down, and there's so many amazing places that you could take Amtrak and in the Midwest or in the East Coast. So I want to do some of that content. I'm going to focus a lot on overnight camping. This year, you'll see a lot of that content coming out of Bicycle Nomad. Now that I don't have the coffee shop, keep working with Blackburn to change the face of cycling, or at least adventure cycling, to have more inclusive,
for sure,
and have more representation. So that's one of the things that I'm working with them as well. And there's so many things that I want to do right now, but the mission of Bicycle Nomad was always to inspire people to travel by bicycle and to keep exploring, and I hope that we continue to do that with the brand.
Right. Awesome. Yeah. Exciting. Yeah. Looking forward to more epic, super short trips. I think like overnighters are underrated.
And they truly are. They truly are. I was just telling someone from Dan from Blackburn recently that when I opened my coffee shop, I was there like 6-7 days a week, and I miss going out on tours. And literally what saved me was of going, because I thought I was going to go crazy. I was like, I need to travel. And really what saved me was I found a campground that was about 38, 40 miles from my coffee shop. I would ride after I closed down the shop, I would ride down to the campground. The next morning, we'll ride back. And luckily at the coffee shop, we had showers, so I could take a shower and then go to work. And and I just love overnight camping, and I know what it does to someone that is that has that exploring adventure spirit. I would. That's what I'm going to do a lot of this year coming up in 2021, just because of COVID.
Yeah, it's like hitting the reset button, like a deep cycle, like when you get to do it. Yeah. I do think it'll be interesting, if the pandemic is still around in next year or the following year. People have to reframe travel, and it might be that you kind of shelve like the big epic thing, and you do more local exploration, things that don't expose you to the public as long. So
Correct.
yeah. And for me personally, like I appreciate the people that do epic trips, but it seems like every trip is epic. I get epic fatigue. I just want like a nice, relatable trip that I can wrap my head around and actually do one day. So I think there's going to be like a huge market. Small's the new big.
Yeah. I'm also working, and I can't disclose this, but I'm also doing a project with Arlen Hall, and this is going to be pretty epic.
Cool. Let's see. Tipsy Rider says, my wife and I had the pleasure of meeting you at your cafe when bikepacking Arizona. You were incredibly welcoming and helpful. And the question is, will Coco Espressos be part of your future trip? I think that's the perfect question to end on.
Yeah, no, Coco Espresso will always be part of the brand, and we'll figure out how to incorporate it. Even if we make a T-shirt with the Coco Espresso Bicycle Nomad, we'll figure that out. But yeah, Coco Espresso is part of the brand.
Nice. Sweet. Well, I think I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you so much, Eric, for joining us. Thank you guys in the YouTube chat. There's still 182 of you. Hit that like button. It's free. It helps the channel. All that good stuff. And
hey,
be sure to follow. Yeah.
my love to Laura. Okay.
Thanks.
Lots of love. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a tough time here on the channel. Still trying to push through. Living the dream or what have you.
Yeah.
But I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's see. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. Eric, any last words before I sign this off?
One of the last words that I have is, and I mentioned it before, just keep exploring, regardless of the state of America. Bicycle traveling has done so much for me as a person, as a human being, and I would not allow someone to suffocate me just because of how they feel, So especially people of color, like I go out and explore, look at history, and yeah. And if anyone has any comments or questions, hit me up on DM on bicycle_nomad, and I could talk bicycle every day. It's just what I love. So, and I just want more people to go out there and explore by bike. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, on that note, I'm going to take it home. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Hit the like button, all that stuff. Like, share, subscribe. See you later, Eric. And as always, everybody, keep the supple side down. All right.